Chapter 14. The Protection of the Channel of Blessing. As we have examined previously, the Bible presents to us a model of life where God is the source of life, spiritually, mentally, and physically. This life is not donated or given as a package, but is streamed continually to us through His Spirit. In that stream of life is the vital element of blessing, which we discovered is called the glory of children. Without the blessing of the Father through this stream, life lacks purpose and meaning. We have examined closely the roles of husband and wife as a human example of the source or seed principle to pass on this blessing, and the birthing and nurture principle which submits to the seed source and acts as the key example of how to stay connected to the channel of blessing. We have witnessed in the book of Genesis how Satan has made several attempts to break this channel of blessing system, and we have examined the key components in the family of Abraham to keep this channel of blessing system in operation. The children of Israel had the foundations of its channel of blessing decimated, and now that Israel was released from their bondage, they needed to be taught again these vital principles. The centerpiece of this rebuilding program was the giving of the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. A close examination of these commandments in light of our study reveals some very interesting things. Section A. Clear identity roles are vital. At the end of chapter 6, we made the following statement. Therefore, recognition of this male seeding, headship identity, and a female nurture, submission identity, reflecting the image of the Heavenly Father and Son, is the vital key to build a treasure of family memories upon a strong and harmonious relational system. A clear perception of our identity and who we are is vital to keeping this channel of blessing open. For instance, when we realize that as humans we have no life in ourselves, this is a perception of our identity. When we realize that God alone has life to give and share, this is a perception of His identity. In chapter 7, we looked at Satan's introduction of the inherent life source concept, meaning that human beings have or possess life in themselves.
Genesis 3, verse 4. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die.
This lie confused our perception of the identity of God as the only possessor of life, and also confused the identity of ourselves as having no life inherently. This confusion of identity caused the human race to lose interest in staying vitally connected to God and fostered the spirit of independence and self-sufficiency. The point we are making is that for the channel of blessing to flow correctly, both the identity of the source of the channel and the identity of the receiver of the channel must be clearly understood, otherwise the channel breaks down. The following story gives a good example of how an incorrect perception of identity can cause a breakdown in communication channels. The following is a transcript of radio communication between American and Canadian forces during the Second World War.
Canadians, please divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid a collision. Americans, recommend you divert your course 15 degrees to the north to avoid collision. Canadians, negative, you will have to divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid a collision. Americans, this is the captain of a U.S. Navy ship. I say again, divert your course. Canadians, no, I say again, you divert your course. Americans, this is the aircraft carrier USS Lincoln, the second largest ship in the United States Atlantic Fleet. We are accompanied with 3 destroyers, 3 cruisers, and numerous support vessels. I demand that you change your course 15 degrees north. I say again, that's 15 degrees north or counter measures will be undertaken to ensure the safety of this ship. Canadians, this is the lighthouse. Your call.
The American ship did not understand the true identity of the lighthouse and therefore related to the lighthouse in an arrogant manner. The American ship had also overestimated its own sense of power. It had a false perception of itself, for no ship could force the lighthouse on the mighty rock to move from its position. This story illustrates what happened to the human race when it embraced the lie of the serpent. Humanity no longer wished to submit to God, and the channel of blessing was broken. With these things in mind, let us consider the plight of the Israelites. While in Egypt, many of the Israelites had been affected by the Egyptian religion, which believed strongly in the immortality or inherent life source of the soul. Therefore, the Israelite perception of God's true identity was confused. They were also confused about their own identity. Section B. The Ten Commandments. Define identity of God and man. The giving of the Ten Commandments to Israel was the key initiative in restoring a correct perception of identity so that the channel of blessing could be restored and protected. These commandments were so vital that they are the only words in the Bible that God wrote directly himself.
Exodus 31:18. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God.
Each one of these commandments tells us something about the God of the Bible, what he is like, and what is most important to him. Let us look closely at each of these commandments and see what they tell us.
Table contains 2 columns, the first headed commandment and the second attribute of God. 10 rows provided for each of the 10 commandments.
1. I brought you out of bondage. You will have no other gods besides me. Redeemer and Saviour, the only source of blessing. 2. You shall not make any carved image, relational internal focus, rather than material external focus. 3. You will not take the name of God in vain, integrity and transparency in relationships. 4. Remember the Sabbath. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, creator of all things, source of life and blessing. 5. Honor your father and mother. Family blessing structure. Respect for authority. 6. You shall not kill. Life is precious. Relationships are love-based. God is the source of life. 7. You shall not commit adultery. Valid intimate relationships are forever. 8. You shall not steal. Spiritual, relational, not material focus. 9. You shall not lie. Integrity and transparency in relationships. 10. You shall not covet. Reveals God as the source of life and blessing. Coveting assets and possessions denies this reality. Each of these commandments is aimed at protecting our sense of who God is, and therefore protecting the channel of blessing. In these commandments, God tells us that He is the only source of blessing. He tells us that He is not to be worshipped through visible and material objects, as this destroys our perception of God as a truly relational being and shifts our focus to material and external things. He tells us that our perception of His identity can be undermined by taking His name in vain, meaning claiming to belong to Him when our hearts are elsewhere. The 4th commandment is the clearest statement we have revealing God as the source of all created things. This commandment is the most vital of all the commandments in giving us a right perception of God's identity. The 5th commandment is the second most vital commandment as it reveals the human structures through which God's channel of blessing flows. It speaks to us of the importance of submission, obedience, and respect. Each of the last 5 commandments are practical human expressions of revealing God as the only life source and how the avoidance of these things will aid in staying connected to Him. If we study the Bible further, we see that the 10 commandments are expressed as a reflection of God's character, a written form of what He is like. This is a further confirmation of the fact that the law reveals God's identity and is a protection of the source of blessing. Notice the following comparisons.
Table, showing the comparison of God's character and His law.
God's character is spiritual, John 4:24, love, 1 John 4:8, truth, John 14:6, righteous, 1 Corinthians 1:30, holy, Isaiah 6:3, perfect, Matthew 5:48, good, Luke 18:19, just, Deuteronomy 32:4, pure, 1 John 3:3, unchanging, James 1:17, stands forever, Psalm 90 verse 2, the way, John 14:6, great, Psalm 48:1, God's law also is, first spiritual, Romans 7:14, 2, love, Matthew 22:37-40, third, truth, Psalms 119, 142, 4, righteous, Psalms 119, 144, 172, 5, holy, Romans 7:12, 6, perfect, Psalms 19:7, 7, good, Romans 7:12, 8, just, Romans 7:12, 9, pure, Psalms 19:8, 10th, unchanging, Matthew 5:18, 11th, stands forever, Psalms 111:7-8, 12th, the way, Malachi 2:7-9, 13, great, Hosea 8:12, 14, clean, Ezekiel 22:26. Since these commandments tell us that it is God who created and made us, and that we have come forth from His hand, the commandments also clearly reveal our origins and identity. When we understand the commandments in this light, we can understand why the Bible speaks about the law in the following way.
Psalm 19, 7-8. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. Psalm 111, verse 7-8. The works of His hands are verity and judgment. All His commandments are sure. They stand fast forever and ever, and are done in truth and uprightness. Ecclesiastes 12:13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Isaiah 42:21. The Lord is well pleased for His righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. Matthew 5:17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Matthew 22:36-40. Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Romans 7:12. Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just, and good. Revelation 14:12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Revelation 22:14. Blessed are they that do His commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city.
Section C. The Ten Commandments twisted by the lie of the serpent. When we understand the law of God as a protection of the channel of blessing, then the law is something that is wonderful, lovely, and precious. It is something that we should cling to and cherish as a precious gift from God. This is exactly how King David saw it.
Psalm 119:97. O how love I thy law! It is my meditation all the day. Psalm 48. I delight to do thy will, O my God. Yea, thy law is within my heart. Psalm 119:77. Let thy tender mercies come unto me, that I may live, for thy law is my delight.
Satan has terribly deceived the world about the law of God. Many Christian churches teach and believe that we can't keep the 10 Commandments. Trying to keep the commandments is referred to as legalism. Many Christians teach that the law was nailed to the cross of Christ. Christian believers are set free from the law, and the only command we have today is to love one another. Why do many Christians think this way? Why do Christians often see the law as an enemy rather than a loving friend that protects the channel of blessing system? The simple answer is the lie of the serpent.
Romans 7:10-11. And the commandment, which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it slew me.
The Bible clearly states that the commandments were ordained to life, or the protection of life. But sin, or the entrance of the serpent's lie, deceives and kills us. How does this take place? The lie of the serpent causes us to believe that there is some level of power in ourselves. The lie also causes us to want to prove ourselves by displays of such power. When the law of God is introduced to a person in this state of mind, then the first inclination is to try and obey this law in order to please God. After several attempts to do this, resulting in the constant experience of failure, a person will either give up his belief or he will swing to the belief that we don't have to keep the law. The death of Jesus is all we need. This type of reasoning fits perfectly the words of Paul, that sin through the commandment deceives us.
Diagram. Contrasting the correct view of the law with how Satan changed the perception of it. See chapter 14, part C for details.
God never ever intended us to try and keep the 10 Commandments as a means of trying to gain acceptance with Him.
Ephesians 2:8-9. For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Romans 4:3-5. For what saith the Scripture? Abraham believed God, and it was counted unto him for righteousness. Now to him that worketh is the reward not reckoned of grace, but of debt. But to him that worketh not, but believeth on him that justifieth the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness.
The lie of the serpent actually turns us against the very thing that was designed to protect us and keep us connected to the channel of blessing. So as Paul says,
Romans 8:7. Because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be.
the carnal mind, or mind affected by the lie of the serpent, can't submit to the law of God, either because he refuses to submit, or he thinks that he has power in himself to do it. But once the lie of inherent power is removed, the law of God is the most wonderful protective gift from God, and the most precious parts of this law are the two laws at the center: the command concerning the Sabbath, which is the clearest revelation of God as the source of life and invites us to rest in that reality, and the law to honor our parents, which gives us the most practical, visible expression of God's family kingdom and reveals how the blessing is passed from generation to generation. Most people recognize the importance of families, but few people see the importance of the Sabbath in the war against Satan to protect the channel of blessing.
Isaiah 58:13-14. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, And call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable. And shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words. Then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it.
How wonderful it is that God gave Israel a law to protect them from the snares of Satan. But God did not stop here. He placed this law at the center of a system of worship that would teach the Israelites how to approach and worship him. After all their exposure to Egyptian idolatry, it would take time for Israel to learn to know and understand God. This need for time to get to know God is clear in their reaction to first hearing his voice. They were so afraid that they wanted to run away.
Exodus 20:18-19. And all the people saw the thunderings, and the lightnings, and the noise of the trumpet, and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed, and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die.
It was one thing for God to speak this law from Mount Sinai, but this law would have no protective effect unless its principles resided in their hearts and became part of their way of thinking. Therefore, the transfer of the principles of the law from the tables of stone to the tables of their hearts became the focus of God's covenant with Israel.
Hebrews 8:10. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind, and write them in their hearts. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people.
Sadly, Israel revealed that they also had been deceived by the lie of the serpent by promising God that they would obey the law.
Exodus 19:5-8. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. For all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. And Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him. And all the people answered together, and said, All that the Lord hath spoken, we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord.
When God asked them to keep his law, he wanted to see if they would realize whether they could obey or not. God hoped that they would ask him to help them, but influenced by the lie of inherent power, they rashly promised to be obedient. It was quickly revealed that this was impossible, as evidenced in the dancing around the golden calf.
Exodus 32:7-8. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go, get thee down, for thy people, which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee up out of the land of Egypt.
This experience of thinking we can perform God's will through our own understanding and abilities is referred to as the Old Covenant. The New Covenant, which was always God's intent, was to write this protective law into their hearts himself. In writing this law in their hearts, they would become like him, because as we noticed, the law reflects who God is. So how would God accomplish this? God gave to Israel a sanctuary worship system that showed them how to connect to this law and allow its principles to be transferred into their hearts. The Israelite sanctuary system is actually a journey into the very heart and mind of God. It allowed them to come close to him, be near him, and be like him. What a wonderful gift this was. Here was a system that would protect their families and keep them connected to the channel of blessing.